Hello, my dear friends. The following is a recount, a retelling, if you will, of the MR340, the longest nonstop paddle race in the world, the globe, or flat, however weird you want to get. Me and my brother attempted it. I'll get into that later. We did good. And my parents were on the ground crew. So it was a whole family thing. One brother said, nah, I'm cool. I'm not doing it. Which I get because he's not sore today. The race was a few weeks ago and I'm still kind of sore. August 1st, 2023. So you'll see me break the third wall, fourth wall, and describe a few things. When I was editing it, it's like, oh, I left that out. I left this out. Normally I wouldn't do that, but I wanted this to be informational. So you're getting some info. Let's get into it. Here we go. Okay. Welcome, Brother Matt, fellow 340 conqueror.
Hey, Professor, how are we doing today?
I'm good. So this video is going to be what I wanted 3 months ago. Like a talk through of what the race is and then what type of gear and whatnot we shouldn't have packed, should have packed, etc.
Sure. And the amount of money we spent, do we get to acknowledge that, or is that something we keep to ourselves?
Well, I'm broke. I'm homeless now, so yeah, we can. Just as it goes, just say I spent $7,000 on that thing.
Yeah, I overspent in some categories and underspent in others, and yeah, let's get into it. I'm happy to share.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so check in at Cop Point.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, at that point, like, how many times have we been on the river?
What got me was okay, I just rudely ignored him. First talking out the gate, I just ignore him. He said, what did he say? How many times had we been on the river? Just once. That would be one thing I would change. Multiple times. I would go 5 or 6 times next year. I don't know. It's like half a mile of boats.
Yeah.
And our boats were not compatible. Actually, yeah. we were bottom quarter, I would say, 25%.
Yeah, it's 500 plus boats, so it is a lot of boats, and we were in 14 footers.
14 and a half.
14.5, and we're seeing some 1820s. That's right. It was a little intimidating.
Yes, because of the 340 miles to come.
There were some shorter boats, a couple.
There was. There's the Reaper. You know that fella.
Yeah, he was. I was leading him the whole way.
Yeah.
Letting know.
You were the lighthouse. You were the beacon for him. Okay, so race day, 6:30 in the morning. This is good too. This is ground crew mom over there.
Yeah. Who's that getting in the boat or struggling to get in the boat?
He looks wet already.
Yeah, I struggled. We didn't get there in time to go down the boat ramp, so we decided to go on the bank, and that was, I would say, a bad decision, but get there 30 minutes early, 45 minutes early.
We found a mudslide and we slid down it basically. Yeah, get there a little earlier than we did.
It wasn't over by the confluence here. Like as you're heading towards KC, you can see the downtown skyline. Everyone warns you about confluence. It just wasn't overly. It didn't seem to faze me much.
No. One thing I noticed about it is I was stuck in it.
Oh.
I couldn't.
Okay.
Maybe that's because there was boats on either side, but I wanted to get out of it.
Yeah.
And get into the main. So, yeah, that's a good point too. So we started at, was it Kansas River? Kaw River? Same difference. And then it goes into the Missouri. And this is kind of directly where they're meeting.
Yeah, the line you took was like mid-river, which was a little unique. Most folks were hugging the shore.
Yeah, that's something else that my GPS had the channel
Oh.
way different than where everyone else was. A lot of the
Everyone was beeline to avoid the barge construction, I think, is what most people were doing.
oh
And I
yeah
think we're on the channel.
yeah okay. Just throughout the race too, I noticed a lot of people were hugging. Maybe that's the 100-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, I also wonder whether or not everyone has their tracker on the whole time. A lot of folks turn their screens off for like 10 or 20 minutes, and a lot of times you can kind of lose where if it's not going in an intuitive place, you lose the channel.
Right, right. I kept mine on. I tried to stay within 20 foot of it the whole time.
Yeah, so this is race out paddler and then backup battery pack just so you can keep the screen on the whole time was pretty useful.
Mm-hmm.
$20 battery pack, iPhone, whatever, 11 or whatever I got.
I did, and I'll talk about this later, but I did get a GPS that was, I don't remember, $200 or something, but it was crucial for me. Rugged. I hit it with my paddle all the time. It was fine, and enough, less than a phone would be.
And it showed the track. It showed the channel.
Yeah, it told me how far from the channel I was, etc. It's a little clumsy because it's Garmin old technology, it seems like, but it worked well. The Garmin was really nice in some aspects and not so nice in others. I don't want to make this a review about the eTrex 22X. The nice things was you could have multiple fields on the display and show the map of the river channel, which is out there publicly on their amazing Facebooks and their forums. You got to dig a little bit, but it's out there. So the fields would show average speed, total time, current speed, how many feet you are from the channel, etc. Right? So that's cool, super cool. It's right here. It's rugged. The bad thing is, I think also the scale is so huge. It's 340 mile. It's across the whole state, right? So you had to zoom out to see any of the checkpoints and the waypoints that my brother had made a cool GPX file, Garmin file. But it's very cumbersome to move around in that particular Garmin to go and find the waypoints. So I just didn't do it because I had to stop paddling and go into menus and stuff like that. So that was a pain. Waypoints was a pain. Topical display was cool. Perhaps it was because it was the scale. You had to zoom in a lot to see where you were at. Zoom out a mile, 200 miles to see the waypoints. Okay, so here's just a bunch of us. I don't know where, I think you're right behind me at this point.
Yeah, I hung with you for, I don't know, an hour or so and then dropped back.
I thought this was cool, all the construction and whatnot.
Yeah, the city. It's nice coming out of the city. There's some energy there.
I felt like it took less time too because there's more distractions. You can see other humans and people working and whatnot. When you're out in the middle of nowhere, that bend that's 3 miles away takes forever.
Everyone was pretty amped. Everyone was going probably harder than they thought they were for the first hour of getting out of the city. So it was a little bit of an effort for me to keep up with everybody.
Yeah. That's a bunch of them. So this is the solo, which we launched 1 hour before the tandems.
Yeah, and as far as like drafting, it's better to draft off those bigger tandem boats. So I didn't do much drafting until probably 3 or 4 hours in when the tandems came up.
Yeah, that's true. I caught some of the big boats that had like 10 people or whatever in it that were making a wake. Just get right behind them.
Sort of barge on the right. You got like aggregate piled up.
Yeah, those are the first parked barges. That must be what that is. Just a big barge. A lot of rocks, it seems. They just pile rocks on them and move them from, I guess, to work on the piers or what are they called? Wing decks. Yeah.
Yeah, headwind is starting to show up in your video, which this is the 2023 race, and it was epic. The headwind, it kicked up to like 2 foot waves at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, it was brutal. It was definitely brutal. There's some headwind.
Yeah, so the wind was like out of the east generally, but whenever the river bent to where it was like direct head on, and it would gust up to almost 40 mile per hour, you get those just giant waves, even splashing into the boat. So always have a cup or a sponge, uh, keep the boat dry enough.
Good call. Yeah, you're going to get wet. And I think it was easier for us because of our boats to deal with because we had the shorter, more stable situations. But a lot
Yeah,
of people were flipping, is what I heard.
yeah,
A lot.
flipping over or having to pull over to bail their boats.
Yeah. Okay, so this is my first guy that passed me is the funky looking pedal drive. Okay, so when I say they first passed me, I'm talking about the tandems. They had started an hour later than us. So a few hours in is when I started getting passed by the quicker tandems. Solos were zooming by me,
Yeah,
which was about Napoleon, is when I started getting passed. If I remember correctly.
which is like 30 or 40 miles in.
30 or 40. Yeah, here it is. Napoleon. It's about 6 hours of paddling, approximately.
I needed to get out at that point. I'd been in the whole time, so I got out. I think at the restroom for 10 minutes. I think I was there for 8.
Yeah.
So it was out of the boat, crews there to help, ground crew and race crew, and it's just porta potties generally along the way, or campground bathrooms, which are kind of the same in quality. So yeah, in and out for me because I was 8 minutes in front of the Reaper pretty much the entire second half of that day.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, I don't know, I was 45 minutes ahead of him. So I didn't stop long either. I don't think I got off the ramp. I just got a water refill from the ground crew and then was on my way.
And we just did 3-liter water bladders, $15 Amazon. We bought 6 of them so we could always have a couple in the boat and a couple ready to switch out.
Mm-hmm. And there goes, I think it's called the Dragon Boat. It looks like 20 people in that thing. So right about
They were world record this year. They weren't able to get it because it was cut short. But
yeah. Yeah, I saw that 390 miles or something was the record. There goes the A-10s, which I don't know if they buzzed you, but they flew right over me, which was
that's for
pretty cool. I've never seen one before. And then I think what's the first one? Waverly?
is that not Fort Osage Railroad Bridge? Just before Waverly?
It might be. That's the first moving barge that we saw. So it was 6, 7, 8 hours in before we saw a barge that was moving. There's Waverly. 74 miles, 12 to 13 hours in. And you had just beat the Reaper by 8 minutes or something.
Yeah, but also there was a lot of people in that last 10 minutes. There was like 50 people. And the Reaper caught, I think, over 50, which was pretty unique. I think they only catch a couple, but that headwind was brutal.
It destroyed everybody, I think.
Yeah, not just getting away really, but then thereafter I'd already blown a gasket, so I was kind of bleeding out for the remainder of the race.
Yeah. And then this is us leaving. So it was dark or getting dark.
It took me 13 hours to get to Waverly, and then you were there for maybe an hour and a half, and I was there for about an hour.
Yeah, because we ate sandwiches and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got there about 8, left at 9:30. And it's dark, super dark because the moon went away.
But like the first 5 hours of getting to Miami was really awesome. It was like full moon's out, so everything's pretty visible with the full moon. You had lightning in the sky. It was like the start of the Perseid meteor shower. It was like a cool sky for 4 or 5 hours, and then it got scary dark for the last hour or so when the moon went behind the clouds.
Yeah. With the moonlight, it's really not hard to see. I would suggest, I'll go back a little bit. My nav lights, I would tape them so I'm not staring at them because that screwed up my night vision quite a bit. Just
Yeah,
died.
we started seeing debris coming into Miami. So this would be almost 24 hours into the race, not quite,
Yeah,
20-ish.
approximately.
And when we were cutting over the Miami ramp, River Right, this ramp, there was debris about the size of the boat coming down through the flow. So
Yeah, and that's about when the moon went away too. This is we had stayed at Miami in your truck actually for 3 hours, 4 hours. Took a little power nap.
yeah, so we had pulled over to avoid storms and headwinds, and so we were basically onshore from 4 to 8, give or take. Um, and the headwinds from 6 to 8 were awful. And I think we headed out right as the headwinds were dying down. But a lot of folks hit that headwind in the morning, and more people DNF'd, and a lot of folks were.
Yeah, yeah. And this is at Miami at 7:30 or whatever. And I think I put people were just leaving. Yeah, they said screw it, we're gone because the wind was brutal. I remember asking you, why is so many people leaving? Because you're past the first checkpoint. There's some of the waves coming out of Miami.
I think 170 people either got cut by the Reaper or DNF'd. And so, yeah, the headwind was unpleasant.
Yeah, it's like we're used to lakes, and it's like a boat wake the whole time.
Yeah, that's the PTSD I'm experiencing now. It's just those 2 foot waves, knowing I need to be going 6 mile an hour and only going like 3.5 or 4. So yeah, that lasted again another hour before it was just a normal headwind versus a rocking headwind.
And here's a huge, super big barge at Dalton Bottoms.
Yeah, I liked your video on this one. I thought it was pretty telling. It was, I don't know, what was it, 10 minutes of pretty cool waves?
Yeah, and I've got some. It's coming up, but so they must do a lot of. There must be a quarry or something over there because they were cranking out this stuff. So here's a barge wake.
And there was other barges that were nowhere near this wakey, but this one that came by was a 6. It was a 2x3 going upstream, and so I assume that's kind of the biggest they get. But there was one that came by that almost made no wake at all earlier.
Yeah, I think, and again, I think our boats might help us here, but I didn't have that big of an issue going through them.
No issue on our boats, but it was definitely legitimate, whatever you call that we're seeing on the video, swells or wakes.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if you were in a quicker, less stable boat, you would have some issues.
Yeah, agreed. Might have even had to pull over for 10, 15 minutes.
And then this is coming into Glasgow.
But yes, I recognize the ramp. There's a bridge right before the ramp.
Yeah. And so I wanted to show the volunteers. And most of these ramps are downstream, so you have to kind of paddle into the current. You got to figure that out. That was difficult at times. So the volunteers are legit. I mean, I kept the GoPro running, but you could see they picked up the boat, took it all the way up. They also help you get out, which was hard for me. I couldn't walk.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a fair expectation to expect them to do that, but they did it for me every time. They were there helping me out of my boat.
Yeah.
They were there to carry my boat, and they were there to help load it. So that was amazing.
Yeah, it'd be tough to do it when you've been in the boat for 8 hours by yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so at Glasgow, we get a text message that some people appreciated and some people did not.
Has been canceled because of the weather.
That's when they canceled.
Concerned about the rising river and the potential for
Canceled the race
storms. They were in the final
because it was flooding,
miles of the race.
especially a lot downstream, from my understanding. And I've got some clips in here, but we had actually go ahead.
Some areas got like a foot of rain each night, so it was a legitimate amount of rain. And I'm not a river person, but we were starting to see debris the night before.
Yeah, and you could tell it was. I've never been on that part of the river, but you could tell it was coming up, kind of from just the what was in the water and whatnot. There's some people amongst debris, which would be super hard at night. And I think,
it's either at night or crossing the channel could be super dangerous. But if you're just going with the flow, the debris is not that much of an issue. But anytime you're not in that sweet spot of just going with the channel,
right.
Your spot.
Okay, so ground crew, there they are, mom and dad, kicked butt. Yeah, this is just a shout out to them. I think it's a race for ground crew too. Like, there's not a lot of time to chill, it seems.
Yeah, that seems to be everything I hear, and it definitely came true. It was like I was hoping they'd have some time to chill, but it was they were on point the entire time, and probably would have been through the rest of the race. So yeah, expect your ground crew to be. You should compensate your ground crew in some way. Probably is best.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a race for them as well. It's an event. Did we mention it got canceled? We got canceled at Glasgow.
The race ended early. I'm not sure that technically we say it got canceled.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna get yelled at for that. But yeah, ended early. Good call.
You were wanting to get my reaction, having just beat the Reaper into Glasgow, was feeling like, oh, that's too bad they ended the race right now.
Yes. I figured, my thought was, I've been training for 4 to 5 months or whatever it was. I want to finish this thing. I don't want to do it again.
Yeah.
So, but that is what it is. Okay. So gear. One of my big questions was, what do we get for this race? And we tried a tandem canoe several times. We rented a Winona and Jensen, and it didn't fare well. You had brought
in June.
Yeah, maybe earlier. You had brought it down to Wichita, and we dumped it in the Arkansas.
So May, June is when we thought we were going to do tandem, and then we had to switch a month or two before the race.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah,
2 or 3.
Yeah, that was tough. Anyway, so we switched and thought, okay, now we both have kayaks, but not. We got like recreational for sure kayaks. So at that point, it's like, okay, we need to find something that we can do.
10 to 12, what we had.
Yeah. So, my choice was, I wanted something that I could use after the race. I'm not going to be a marathon paddler. So I didn't want to spend $5,000 on a surf ski or something. So, and I think this was your perception too. No pun intended.
Well said. Yeah. So I did the 14.5 Perception Carolina.
Yeah.
Bought it used off Facebook.
Yeah. And then mine's a very similar boat, Wilderness Systems Tsunami 145. Same thing, same size, almost same weight limit and whatnot.
Yours was newer, had a better seat, but yeah, I would say similar boats.
Mine was, yeah. And that was a big thing. They bragged about the seat. So it's like, okay. And it had a little bit more of a weight limit, 50 pounds or something.
And then on the paddle side, you discovered the carbon paddle pretty early on. So I just bought whatever you bought.
Yeah. The paddle was, I suggest a paddle that's super light. What's it called? Carbon fiber. Ours were
Yep.
32 ounces. I think they make them even lighter, but I couldn't imagine doing it with like a Walmart paddle.
Aluminum, yeah. Oh, yeah, that would have been brutal. Agreed.
Your arms would fall off. And then we bought the same exact life jacket too, which was $50 or something.
Yeah. So Academy Sports for the paddle, I ordered mine online, and then I actually went into Dick's and picked up the life jacket.
Yep.
Life jacket was like sub 100, I think. It was like 80, 85.
Okay. Yeah. Which it did well. I wish I had more pockets, but that's all good.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and the boat, mine with new was about 1,200, but I bought it used for 650.
Yeah.
For those, figure out whether or not they buy a boat, whether or not new or used.
Yeah. And I would have went used, but I was sold on that specific model, so I kind of had to get a new one. There was new used ones, but not nearby.
Yeah.
Okay, so food. I had previously packed us food, one baggie, 6 bags, 1,500 calories or so. I noticed food was difficult to eat and paddle at the same time.
Right.
Cliff bars I would do again.
Yep.
But nothing else. Nothing else pictured here. I had the cheap peanut butter crackers and the what is that, trail mix. I would just do a bunch of Cliff bars is what I would do if I did it again.
Cliff bars are like 4 big bites, and in my training, I found the mini Cliff bars, which are 2 bites, so you can literally open it and just shove it in your mouth, and you're only out 5 seconds versus maybe a few more seconds for the larger Cliff bars. But I did find the Cliff bars the easiest to eat. I was paddling less intense than you. I got through pretty much all of it, with the exception I didn't eat the jerky.
That's my number 2 is I would keep the jerky, but and there's also liquid IV, which I'm a big fan of.
How did you consume that?
I had a bottle for the drink mixture, and then the bladders was just the water.
So I just had the bladders, so I had no good way to.
Yeah.
Well, I guess some of my little vices like Diet Dr Pepper and energy drinks in cans and bottles, but
yeah,
got it.
Then rain gear, or I'll call this like camping gear, which is a bivy sack, a lightweight bivy sack, a lightweight tarp, some paracord. I've actually got the ones with the buckle already on it because I suck at tying knots. Some tarp clips, what else? And a rain poncho. So, and a Mylar blanket. This was
you have a little LED light.
What's that?
I like it. You need glow sticks if you have little LED lights.
No, I wouldn't think. This was not meant to be opened. Like I didn't want to camp on a sandbar.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
So, and I know those glow sticks are cheap and would come in handy if you were, they weigh nothing. So I just threw them in there.
Yeah, in order to light the inside of my kayak, I had a little LED light that was perfect. It was, $1 on Amazon. Buy 12 of them or whatever for 10. That was perfect to kind of illuminate. I think I clipped it on my life vest.
Yeah, makes sense. I think I had a red. I went to Bass Pro or Cabela's and they had a pack of those things for $10 and it was like 30 of them. So I used them all over the place. Okay, with the camping gear, it kind of depends on what your ground crew is doing. If they're going to be around the whole time, you don't need that much camping gear. I'm still going to pack the survival gear I've got, and depending on what the ground crew's got going on, I might pack a tent or a bivy tent, something that's a little more substantial than just surviving. Something that's a little better. You won't add that much weight, maybe 5-10 pounds for a decent tent. So I would change that depending on what my ground crew's got going on. The toolkit, paracord, zip ties, rope, multi-tool, and a little patch of flex seal tape. This was the thought here was if the rudder blew up or if you hit something and punctured a hole. Other than that, what else can you do on the river?
Rudder? Didn't you have a rudder issue in Miami, or was it not an issue?
I don't think it was. I don't quite remember, but if the rudder, nothing that needed fixed. Maybe I moved maybe the bungee got caught or something. I can't quite remember.
My bungee had gotten caught, and I needed you to actually flip down or up my rudder toward the end of the race. And then, yeah. So no real tools needed, although probably if we had more time, might have tinkered a little bit with at least my rudder.
Yeah. And a lot of this, so the ground crew had all this, but better, right? They had actual pliers instead of a multi-tool and more paracord. And so in my mind, this was just to get from here to there so we can park and fix something if we needed to. First aid kit, simple Band-Aids. My thought here was a cut is all I'm willing to fix on the boat. A broken leg, I'm not packing a first aid kit. I'm not packing tourniquets, none of that. This was just for cuts.
Yeah, and blisters.
Yeah. And then I weighed all of this stuff. And my electronics weighed the most, which I'll show you that in a second, but it was over 3 pounds. So everything I had on my boat was about 10 pounds minus the water. So add another 10 to 12 pounds maybe for water. A gallon weighs 8 pounds, I think, around 10 pounds. So 20 pounds of gear is all I took.
Yeah.
And you're about the same because it was almost the same gear. So
yeah.
And that's because we had a ground crew. Without a ground crew, it would have been twice that probably. And there's my Garmin, which was a lifesaver. I would say get one. And that's my setup there. So that's the Garmin, a phone, which this is a bit overkill, but I liked it. Phone, GoPro, and a flashlight. Flashlight did not work at all, really.
Yeah, better than mine, but still, yeah, not great. I just had a phone that was mounted on my kayak, so I went lower tech. It was fine. I wish I would mount my phone to where it could shoot good video. That's probably my only regret. Is it'd be cool if I could just switch to camera and get some of those waves or a bridge going by or whatever. So that'd be the only thing I'd change is making sure that I can get decent video because mine's all fuzzy because it's picking up on the rack that's holding it up.
Right. Yeah. And I have GoPros I might as well throw a GoPro on there because I have a few of them. I would.
Waterproof phone. I think we both have waterproof iPhones, but I also put mine in a waterproof case so I could put a lanyard on it. And we forgot to mention tying everything to the boat. Maybe you were going to mention that, but make sure you buy the 10 or 12 pack off Amazon of carabiners on each side and little lanyards that you can just tie everything to your boat.
Yep, definitely. And you could half-ass that too. You could paracord with a knot or whatever. Just make sure it's tied to your situation. You can see in this picture that looks like old telephone wire lanyard type things. Okay, so with the flashlight, I think if I do it again, I'll get a good flashlight. Do you remember the dude from Miami at night?
Yeah.
There's about 8 of us following this one guy that had a real flashlight, and he was looking for buoys and things, so he could see obstacles and we could not. Once the moon was covered up. So let's talk about strategy. If you were to do it again, how would you change your approach?
Important to note, I'm not doing it again.
Yes.
I think you plan to. I do not plan to. I've had enough. Strategy-wise, for me, ultra events that go beyond a sleep cycle are not my thing. And so my main strategy change would be accepting that I don't sleep during a race and only nodding off for an hour instead of 3 or 4 or 5 hours. So, and then just floating as much as possible. I thought we played the weather perfectly as well as we could. No way to avoid some of the headwind, but we avoided 2 or 3 hours of it by staying in on the ramp. So for me, the biggest strategy change would be stay in the boat. Just stay in the boat and only sleep when you start hallucinating too much. But you and I stuck together, which was good. You have to sacrifice for each person a little bit, but you also get the benefits of being together, sleeping in having a truck instead of being in the same spot. So yeah, for me, it's I felt like you had prepared pretty good on the food side. So for me, it was just dealing with sleep was my biggest issue.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I would stop a lot less. I think I would stop, maybe not less, but spend less time stopped. And I would have 2 big stops where I knew I was going to chill for 4 hours as opposed to an hour here, an hour there. I would just dredge through it and then rest.
Yeah, I think there's something to say. First off, that you and I's strategy adjustments might be different. That we're just different paddlers with different strengths.
Yeah.
And then I just didn't train enough. But it's not like I wanted to train any more than I did. So,
training for me, it was boring and sucked.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it was bad.
Like it's not like you can't go fishing. It's not, and to do 10 miles in a kayak takes 3 hours. So, and then you've got to train for 40 miles or whatever. That's just sucked. Okay. Training wasn't that bad. Certain parts of training wasn't that bad. Like we had gone to Table Rock and put in many miles at Table Rock. So I think the more locations you go to, the better. I definitely will go and do some races beforehand and go to the river, different spots of the river, Missouri River next year. I think I'll do that before the race to keep the training a little bit funner and the monotony is rough if it's the same circle you're doing.
So maybe there's a magic thing to happen in training where it doesn't suck. So if I were to do it again, I'd try to figure out how to make training not suck. But I don't know if that's possible.
And I thought maybe on that thought is doing races instead of going in circles.
Yeah.
Do 3 or 4 races before the big race instead of doing laps on the local river or lake, or that's brutal.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, any other changes? A little bit of food changes. Everything we packed, I thought was pretty legit.
Yeah, did the field crew or the ground crew have any recommended changes?
Yeah. So here's I asked them to write up what they would do, what they wouldn't do. They say things that worked. 2 vehicles for flexibility on overnight stops, which that was do they take 2 vehicles or do they not? And I think they're glad that they did because they could drop off your truck or whatever. It's more flexibility, I think. Spreadsheets, which you guys are super organized when it comes to stuff like that. I am not good at it. But the spreadsheet showed, times, and you can describe the spreadsheet probably better than I could, but.
Yeah, it's just where the checkpoints were, how far they were, and then we put all that on a map. So that was kind of handy. And then the not Race Al Paddler, but Race Al had an estimated arrival time based on your previous pace or whatever. So that was pretty handy as far as planning when we were going to get somewhere.
Yeah, and I didn't get into all that, and I should have because I had no idea. That's something I would change is to know where the hell I'm going and how long it's going to get there. Okay, again, the spreadsheets and the maps were awesome, but this is where I screwed up. I had them in a dry bag in the back storage. In my Garmin, like I said, it was very cumbersome. So I kind of never knew exactly where I was. I had the capability to, but it wasn't handy. Maybe a smaller postcard style flip thing to show where, maybe 20 miles of the river from here to here. So you have 10 little postcards that are laminated or something that you could flip through and see, okay, Waverly is 7 miles from me or whatever. Or something. I need to figure something out there to make that easier. I kept
I like the list of amenities. I don't know, you had it or didn't have it for a while, but I like knowing how far is the next ramp and whether or not there's restrooms or whether or not there's food. So that was pretty handy to have. And I had just printed off a map and just slapped it on my bow or whatever and was just able to reference it.
Yeah, and that's what they had. Printed maps was the thing that worked. Says here they used Find My Phone or find a different locator than the Race Owl locator. It was, I guess, Google billions of dollars is better at mapping than the good old fella that volunteers to create Race Owl.
Yeah, and just another note there is pretty good cell connection the entire race, or at least to Glasgow. So it may be in and out every once in a while, but for the most part, they can follow you on Find My Phone and know where you're at.
Yeah. And then they have things that could have been better, which I think this one's for me, but set up a shower. I like my showers. They say leaner setup for longer stops, so less duplication of gear, etc. So there was overpacking that happened, which is better to be overpacked than underpacked. So I think they're just saying, let's not pack 6 chairs, let's pack 2 or whatever.
Yeah, and you kind of learn that after your first one, right? Because you don't want to go too lean your first time out.
Right. Totally. And then things that did not work. Crappy food from Walmart. And then only one cooler.
To only take, yeah, they had taken 2, right? And they're saying probably only need 1.
Only one cooler. Yeah. They took multiple and only needed 1. So yeah, good food. Which I want to say that I started eating what I was going to eat on the river 2 weeks before.
Huh.
I wanted to be able to go about 16 hours before I had to do the little porter potty, So that was part of the training for me too, is to get my stomach used to eating Cliff bars,
Yeah, and you so many calories, it's unbelievable. So you can eat as much as you can possibly eat throughout the entire race.
Mm-hmm. Which the first 6 hours, I forgot I had food. I forgot I packed the food. I was sitting. It was like in my side spot. So I was starving when I got to Napoleon.
Hey, you forgot to mention your genius urine bottle solution.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that's another good point. Pee in the boat. Not in the boat, but in a bottle in the boat.
Whatever.
It's all the same, actually. Yeah. So Velcro. We had not just the urinal bottle thing, but I had some other things that were Velcro to the upper deck. But in the inside, does that make sense? And the inside of the boat, up top, because your legs aren't hitting there, and you can store a bunch of stuff there too, including your pee bottle.
Yeah, right above your thighs, pee bottle, and then I think you put a water bottle, or you had a water bottle up there.
Yeah, I had a bunch of stuff. I had some cargo, like some bags for what was in that bag, like Pepto and that's where I put my extra batteries, was Velcro to the bottom of the cockpit. Yeah, so you're not doing it again.
Nope.
I don't know if I will or not. It depends on the timing, but I would if it works out.
Great event. Glad I did it. Great ground crew, great community. That's a good hobby, has a great community, and this is a great hobby because it has a great community of sport. So, but it isn't my thing. I'll find something else that's super painful.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, let's call that a wrap. Good work, Matthew.
You too, Professor. Till next time.
All right, goodbye.